Imagine a universe where black holes aren't, the terrifying, destructive vacuum cleaners of the cosmos that just tear apart stars and devour light.
Right,
Instead, imagine they are highly conscious celestial traffic cops, like
right.
deliberately stationed throughout the galaxy to keep the cosmos from crashing into itself.
It's quite the image.
It fundamentally changes how you look up at the night sky, doesn't it?
Welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission for you today is to explore a highly unconventional worldview presented in a translated essay titled The Secrets of Black Holes, written by an author named Xu Feng.
Yeah, it's a really unique text.
We are taking a look at a fascinating attempt to merge, Zen awakening and spiritual intuition with some of the most complex concepts in astrophysics. Now, before we jump in, let's just set the ground rules here.
This source material makes some very bold scientific and theological claims. Our goal here today is not to validate the physics or debunk the theology. We are acting purely as your impartial guides through this material. Because whether you view it as brilliant insight or vivid imagination, it offers a truly unique lens through which to view reality.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where exactly does a framework like this even find its footing?
Well, the author grounds his entire worldview in a rather profound moment of parallel discovery. He claims that while meditating on the origin and characteristics of the universe, he arrived at this specific realization.
Okay, what was it?
He realized that the sum of positive and negative energies in the entire universe is exactly zero. From a spiritual perspective, he was tapping into the concept of the void. The idea that ultimate reality is a perfect, unmanifested balance of opposing forces.
Which mirrors one of the most famous concepts in modern theoretical physics. Exactly. A year after the author wrote down his meditation insights, he read Stephen Hawking's famous book, A Brief History of Time. And he found that Hawking had arrived at the exact same conclusion regarding the universe's zero-energy state.
Wow.
Yeah, Hawking used complex theoretical physics and mathematics to show that the positive energy of matter is exactly canceled out by the negative energy of gravity, meaning the universe could literally create itself from nothing.
So Hawking crunches all the numbers on cosmic inflation, and this author sits in Zen meditation, yet they both arrive at the concept of a zero-sum universe.
Right. And the author views this as proof of a core theory. He believes that religion and science are essentially two people walking in completely opposite directions who eventually and inevitably meet in some distant place.
I love that.
He says he is exploring the universe with a sincere religious feeling, while Hawking used a sincere scientific attitude.
I actually found the metaphor he uses for this convergence in the text deeply evocative. He likens the pursuit of knowledge to a person walking into a dark cave. You are groping forward through the pitch black, going deeper and deeper into the microscopic, only to eventually realize that the cave leads out into a vast, entirely new macroscopic world.
That's a great way to put it.
He uses this phrase where hills bend, streams wind, and the pathway seems to end, another village appears.
And that interconnectedness is really the foundation of his entire cosmology. He argues that the universe is a holograph. It is an indivisible whole composed of the greatest creator spirit, which he calls the Tao, along with a vast non-material structure and strict order.
But he takes this idea of order to an absolute extreme, right? He claims that the universe is exactly like a human body with absolutely no superfluous organs.
Yes, exactly.
He points to things like the Earth's mass, its tilt, and its rotation, stating they are accurate to thousands of decimal places by design.
Yeah.
But I have to push back on this a little bit. If the universe is a meticulously tailored suit with no extra threads, then what happens to the seams when massive galaxies pull on each other with unimaginable gravitational force?
That's the big question.
Like, how does he explain the apparent chaos we see in telescope images? We've got galaxies colliding, stars exploding, rogue planets just wandering through the dark.
Well, he addresses that exact tension by arguing that our perception of chaos is simply a limitation of our human vantage point. What appears chaotic to us is actually arranged scientifically and precisely down to the last decimal point.
So we just can't see the full picture.
Right. He says if there were true chaos, the entire system would have collapsed billions of years ago. Therefore, there must be underlying mechanics managing the chaos. which brings us directly to how he views the fundamental forces governing the cosmos.
Ah, okay.
Physicists have spent decades trying to unite the standard four fundamental forces into one unified field theory, but this author argues that mathematical pursuit is doomed from the start.
Because mainstream science is missing pieces of the puzzle.
Exactly. He claims through his spiritual intuition to have discovered 6 cosmic forces. Because mainstream scientists are only working with the 4 physical forces, he boldly asserts they will never establish a unified field theory until they recognize the other 2.
And those other 2 are non-material, right?
Yes, he implies there are non-material spiritual forces governed by the Tao.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the necessity of these extra forces leads directly into his explanation of what black holes actually are.
Right, the transition from forces to structures.
He lays out several rules or mysteries of black holes, and the very first one relies on what he calls the energy and form formula. He says that the greater the energy something has, the more formless it is. Conversely, the smaller the energy, the more it takes a rigid form.
It's an interesting inversion of how we usually think about matter.
Yeah, I was trying to wrap my head around this, and it's somewhat like comparing a solid block of ice to invisible high-powered steam. The ice had a definite, rigid physical form, but a much lower energetic state, while the steam is entirely formless, but packs immense scalding energy.
That analogy captures the state of the object perfectly, and we can even take it a step further to understand the underlying physics he's proposing. High energy fundamentally resists physical constraints.
Okay.
Because black holes are collections of incredibly high energy, the author argues they are inherently formless. But they aren't just dead, formless energy sinks hanging out in the dark.
No, they're far more active than that.
Radically more active. He departs from mainstream science here by claiming that black holes are conscious. They are gods created by the greatest creator, specifically designed to act as cosmic traffic police.
That is such a spectacularly mundane term for a celestial body. Traffic police.
I know, right? But it fits his framework of a meticulously tailored universe flawlessly. Without these black hole police, the fabric of the universe tears. He explains that all celestial bodies have a natural gravity, which he poetically describes as a romantic yearning.
A romantic yearning.
Yeah, stars and planets constantly want to pull each other into their embrace.
But if that romantic yearning were left completely unchecked, the universe would just collapse back in on itself into a single dense point.
Precisely. So the black hole traffic police step in to brutally cut off this romantic yearning. They prevent the celestial bodies from crashing into each other by maintaining a strict dynamic equilibrium across the galaxy.
Wow.
What's fascinating here is how this entirely subverts the traditional view of black holes as pure destruction. This text reframes them as vital, life-saving presences that maintain the boundaries of reality. And they do this through a very specific mechanism. They eat gravity, and then they excrete a repelling force.
So they consume the gravitational pull and output a repulsive energy that keeps the planets and stars at a safe distance from one another.
Exactly.
He specifically addresses the idea of this mechanism failing, asking what happens if these traffic cops fall asleep on the job and cause a cosmic traffic jam. He reassures the reader that they never doze off. They never done, because they are perfectly reliable instruments guided by the higher consciousness of the Tao.
They are the ultimate managers of cosmic order, constantly balancing the equations of the universe in real time.
But if these formless traffic cops are scattered everywhere, excreting repulsive forces and eating gravity, how does that mechanism function structurally? Like, what does this entity actually look like on the inside?
Good question.
Because from our perspective on Earth, a black hole is a region of space where the pull of gravity is so intense that not even light can escape. It just looks completely black.
Well, the author claims that the energy of a black hole is concentrated almost entirely at its extreme edge, rather than at its core.
Which is the exact opposite of how we normally think of celestial bodies, where the incredibly dense, hot core holds all the energy and gravity.
Think of it less like a solid ball of dense energy and more like a cosmic centrifuge. The sheer rotational force and power of this entity has pushed all of its immense energy outward to the very edges, creating an impenetrable, high-energy wall.
Okay, I can picture that.
Because all the energy is acting as a shell or a barrier, looking at it from the outside yields nothing but pitch blackness. But inside that barrier, he claims it is a bright, brilliant, and luminous world.
He uses 2 completely different analogies to explain this edge energy phenomenon, and they're wonderfully distinct. The first one is straight out of corporate architecture. He compares the structure of a black hole to a general manager's office that has a one-way mirror.
I love this one. From the outside, the perspective of the employee on the factory floor, you can't see anything inside the office. It just looks like a dark, reflective piece of glass.
Right.
But from the inside, the manager is sitting in a brightly lit, perfectly comfortable room, and they can see everything happening outside in the universe perfectly.
And then he pivots from middle management to classic Chinese mythology. He brings up Sun Wukong, the Monkey King from Journey to the West. He references the famous episode with the white bone demon. Sun Wukong needs to protect his master, so he uses his golden cudgel to draw a simple circle on the dirt.
Yes, a very famous scene.
When the demon tries to attack them, she physically cannot step inside that circle.
The mechanics of that mythological circle map perfectly onto his black hole theory. The demon cannot cross the line because the energy of the circle drawn by Wukong is vastly superior to the energy of the demon herself.
Oh, that makes sense.
The extreme high energy at the edge of the black hole creates a similar barrier that dictates exactly what can and cannot pass through, meticulously protecting the state of whatever exists inside.
So we have these bright, luminous interiors protected by high-energy event horizons acting as celestial managers. But then the text takes a massive leap, dropping what has to be the most extreme claim in the entire essay. He introduces something he calls the cathode black hole body.
Yeah, this is where it gets really wild. He claims that the absolute largest black hole in the universe exists in a 36-dimensional space. And this specific black hole isn't just a traffic cop managing gravity. It is a literal prison.
A prison specifically designed to hold gods and demons who have violated the laws of heaven.
Right. In electronics, a cathode is the negative terminal, the pole where current flows out or electrons flow in. In the author's spiritual context, this cathode body acts as a cosmic sink or terminal for negative spiritual energy.
Drawing them in.
It draws in the violators, the entities that disrupt the harmony of the universe, and traps them within a 36-dimensional architecture.
So what does this all mean? I have to step in here and play the skeptic for a second.
You too.
It is one thing to philosophize about the balance of gravity, or to note that Zen meditation parallels Stephen Hawking's math about a zero-energy universe. You can follow that logic. But a 36-dimensional supernatural penitentiary for demons.
It's a bit of a stretch.
Right. How can anyone claim to actually know the architecture of a 36-dimensional space? You can't put a multidimensional demon prison under a telescope.
Well, the author is completely self-aware about the epistemological leap he is making here. He explicitly writes in the text, of course, many will think that I am daydreaming or speaking nonsense.
So he expects the pushback.
He anticipates that exact pushback from anyone grounded in traditional science. His answer to how he knows this relies on a concept he calls spiritual intuition, or Lingzhu Gunying in Chinese. He argues that there are ways of knowing the universe that simply do not rely on physical instruments.
He illustrates this with a very humble biological example of the earthworm.
Yeah, he asks the reader to consider how an earthworm, which is biologically little more than a simple, straight digestive tract, knows when it is going to rain.
Which is true, they always come up to the surface.
The earthworm doesn't have a meteorology degree. It doesn't have a barometer or satellite imaging. It senses the coming rain through a biological intuition tuned to a specific frequency of reality.
Sure.
The author believes human beings have a similar, albeit vastly more complex, spiritual sensory apparatus that is currently dormant in most people. When awakened, this intuition can sense the non-material structures of the universe, such as a 36-dimensional space, just as clearly as an earthworm senses a storm.
To back up this claim of non-material intuition, he shares a truly bizarre anecdote about a letter he received. It's an unsolicited letter from an American psychic who claims to have over 30 years of experience and a track record of predicting major global events.
A psychic who had no prior connection to him whatsoever.
She writes to him and says she was just glancing at some list, and his name practically flew off the sheet. She felt a massive energetic connection with all 6 of her senses. She goes on to describe an intense, miraculous vision she had regarding him.
A very detailed vision.
In the vision, she sees the greatest creator painting a picture. There are guests dressed in their Sunday best and children playing happily everywhere. But the absolute focal point of the vision is a well-dressed person standing in the center, holding up a small piece of paper as if it were the most incredibly valuable thing in the entire world.
And the author's interpretation of that psychic vision is immediate and absolute. He assumes, without a shred of doubt, that the incredibly valuable piece of paper the central figure is holding is his own writing. specifically his core text, Life Genuine.
Wow.
He basically concludes that if it isn't his philosophical framework, what else could possibly be that valuable to the cosmos?
See, I have a really hard time bridging that gap. How does a psychic's vision of a Sunday picnic validate a cosmological model of a 36-dimensional black hole? You can't peer review a psychic's letter.
This raises an important question about how we as readers are supposed to engage with this text. When an author claims to have downloaded the secrets of the cosmos through meditation and then uses a psychic's vision as supporting evidence, the standard scientific response is to dismiss the entire document out of hand.
Absolutely.
Texts that rely heavily on spiritual revelation almost always demand absolute, unquestioning faith from their followers. But this author does something highly unusual, almost paradoxical, at the very end of his essay.
He explicitly begs scientists and religious believers to test his claims. He writes, "I hope scientists and religious believers will verify the black hole mysteries I have mentioned."
He urges his readers not to be bound by his text. He tells them not to blindly believe in his words, and he specifically asks them not to treat him as a special or divine person. He strips away the guru persona and simply asks to explore and advance together with humanity.
It is such a fascinating contradiction. He tells you he has discovered the mechanics of a multidimensional cosmic prison using earthworm-like spiritual intuition, but then he ends the essay with the humility of a lab scientist, saying, "Hey, go check my math, don't put me on a pedestal."
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the true value of this essay isn't necessarily improving whether a cathode black hole exists. Whether you read this text as a work of brilliant paradigm-shifting foresight or simply as the vivid imagination of a deeply spiritual mind, it serves a profound purpose.
What's that?
It demands that we step completely outside of our rigid, comfortable categories. It asks us to consider that reality might be significantly stranger and much more deeply interconnected than our current scientific models or traditional religious doctrines suggest.
It really is a testament to the human mind's relentless, almost desperate drive to synthesize the unknown. When we look up at the dark sky, we refuse to just see empty, meaningless space. We weave together high-level theoretical astrophysics, ancient Chinese mythology, and deep spiritual intuition into a single grand tapestry of understanding.
Exactly.
We deeply want the universe to make sense, whether that means calculating gravitational pull to the 1,000th decimal point, or imagining giant celestial traffic cops deliberately keeping the stars from colliding.
We're constantly trying to find the light inside the black hole, using whatever tools we have available, whether those are telescopes or meditation cushions.
That leaves us with a lot to chew on. As we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final lingering thought to mull over as you go about your day. We talked at length about the earthworm, a creature perfectly tuned to sense the incoming rain despite lacking the instruments to measure the atmosphere.
Right.
Now, consider the concept of dark matter and dark energy. Mainstream science tells us that these unseen forces make up roughly 95% of the total mass energy of the universe. Yet we cannot see them, we cannot touch them, and our most advanced physical instruments can barely measure their gravitational shadows.
It's humbling.
Are we, with all our telescopes and particle accelerators, just earthworms completely unaware of the 36-dimensional structures sitting right in our own cosmic backyard? If human intuition can somehow tap into realities that our physical instruments simply aren't sensitive enough to measure yet, let me rephrase that. If our intuition can tap into these unseen realities, what other impossible myths or spiritual concepts might just be advanced physics waiting for the right translator? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep your mind open and keep your curiosity sharp.